the magic happens. I mean, I'm delighted to be able to get into would you have had this particular retreat, we'll say, down the back of the house for a long time?
10, 12 years.
All right. And solely for this, or did it start off as a...
No, solely for this.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah. And I may have asked you before when we were up in Enniskerry, the painting itself, has that always been there? Did it just sort of become something special, you know, when you built?
The painting arrived with the old age pension.
Right.
I never painted before in my life.
Wow.
On a start, a beginner.
And did you get a shock when you realised that it's, you know, you can do it, that you're good at it?
Well, I couldn't draw, and that's the main thing. And when I went, I always wanted to paint, but I couldn't draw. But when I went to a lady, her name's gone.
Okay. Well, we will find that out.
Niamh Harding Miller.
There you go.
Niamh Harding Miller, and she told me, you don't need to draw to paint. I said, okay, talk to me. And she told me how to do the grid.
Right, and just get yourself in that sort of everything's...
And then you put the grid onto canvas and paint what's in each square, and away you
go. Boom. Jigsaw puzzled it together, make sure you got it.
I got the bug, and here I am.
Well, now we're going to do a series of these, but we thought today now we'd start with, you've got 4 paintings that you're particularly proud of, but they're part of Dargle's history.
The Dargle, the Dargle, and most people, when you mention the Dargle, the first thing they think of is the river flowing under the bridge in Bray. Yeah, you got it wrong. The Dargle itself is near Enniskerry. It's a big, deep ravine.
Right.
That's the Dargle. The river itself, up until the middle 1800s, was just the Bray River.
Okay.
Or the Bray water.
Right.
But the fact that the Dargle was partly forgotten when we got into the 20th century, the river became known as the Dargle because it flowed through the Dargle into Bray. But it actually flows out from up near Loch Bray.
Wow.
And it was known as the Bray Water or the Bray River.
Right.
If you look at some of the old maps, early 1800s, you'll see
referred to as the
Bray River.
And the Dargle name, is that connected to a family or to an area?
No, Dargle. It's been said that Dargle meant Darg, Irish for red. There's red stone, an awful lot of red stone in the ground up there. Right. In the ravine itself. Red stone. So some people reckon that Dargle, Red Glen.
Okay.
So that could be it. But it can't be 100% sure of that.
Now, red's the colour of love, which leads us into your first painting.
There you go. Yeah. But anyway, to just clarify, the Dargle was huge, tourism-wise, in the 1700s, 1800s, probably even earlier in the 1600s.
Right.
When I say huge, I mean worldwide. It was known worldwide by big names, and people came to visit the Dargle.
And was it just to see it, or was there boating, or was there some...
No, they didn't need that.
Okay.
It was just a wild glen, but it was owned by the Powers Courts at the time. Right. But down at the river, there was... I'll show you a picture here.
Right.
You can still go down there.
Yeah.
And it looks the very same. And this area here was dead flat. And used to have full orchestras down there.
Right.
In the 1700s.
Wow.
And we know that because Mr. Handel was down there, of the Messiah fame.
Right.
And he commented on the wonderful acoustics.
Wow.
In the Dargle. So he, as big as he was in the 1740s, that's when he was over for the Messiah first performance. Yeah. He went to the Dargle. He knew about it. That's how big it was. He knew of it, and that went. Obviously, has to be brought down.
Would that have been the main kind of Irish performance of that? Was it just that he was playing a few places in Ireland? Because that's pretty spectacular.
No, he didn't play the Messiah down there.
Okay,
but he listened to a full orchestra down there,
right?
Because that was a regular thing down there. They had orchestras, and people would go and listen. They'd come out in their carriages. This is before the trains came to Bray.
Yeah.
They'd come out in their carriages and be dropped at the lower end entrance, and the carriage would go around and meet them at the other end to bring them back up near Enniskerry. There's the other end near Powers Court gates.
Yeah, so it's like the original Red Rocks. This is the Red Rocks in America where U2 played and all that. That's a sort of natural amphitheatre that people use.
No, these are it's not on the cliffs, the rocks. Okay. As you walk along, you can see the red coloured ground, you know. But as a ravine, we used it as kids as a cowboy canyon. It was the nearest thing to a natural cowboy canyon you could have, and that was in the 50s.
Right.
And it was still fairly popular and well known then, but now it's forgotten. But as I said, there were orchestras, all along the pathways.
Yeah.
You would meet up with buskers.
Okay.
Buskers, just like you get in Dublin today. And this is one of the famous buskers. That's old Tom of the Dargle.
Nice.
Who was interviewed loads of times by English papers. I've read the interviews.
Nice.
And he was very well known. And that little trolley there, he was disabled, and Lord Powerscourt had that and had that made for him and gave him the donkey because he was that well known. Because he used to play at kids' parties and birthday parties, Christmas parties in Powerscourt House or Monk's Charleville House and all the big houses. He was that well known.
Wow!
Back in the 1800s.
That's amazing.
So
and obviously it was so popular that you have basically people are setting up busking there because they know there's going to be so much footfall.
Second to Glendalough.
Right.
Was the Dargle. That's where you went.
And would you say now people still go there? Is it a little bit sort of
very
neglected?
Few. I've walked through it several times lately, and you might meet one person with a dog, but it looks the same.
It's still as beautiful and still
as you see it there.
Right.
And if you go in through the lower entrance, just on the Cookstown Road.
Okay.
That's that. If you go in off the N11, going onto the windy Enniskerry Road.
Yeah.
There's a turn on the left, and just a few hundred yards up there, there's an old gateway, all overgrown. You go in there, and you wind up here.
Wow! Look at that.
That's that path.
That's beautiful.
And then
I'm gonna have to check this out.
Yeah. You come to that fork, and that still looks the same today as it was
way
then.
back. Right.
And you go down this left fork, and it leads you down to the river where the orchestras were. But then you come back up, and you go on the higher path, and that takes you up to Lover's Leap.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. Now,
I'm amazed by the fact that it still is beautiful and it has that great history.
Yeah.
You would think, it would be made a bit of fuss about,
even local. You'd be amazed how many local people have never
don't realise its history and don't realise it's there.
We got Lover's Leap earlier, but anyway, the story about that is that this lady used to sit there on the rock with her boyfriend, and anyway, she decided for some reason she'd like a change, so she threw him up. She got rid of him. And went off with somebody new. And then she was up there with the new person one time, and she heard the church bell ringing in Bray, which isn't too far away. And she asked him, "What's that for?" And he says, so-and-so has died. And it was the old boyfriend that had died of a broken heart.
Wow.
So the lady kept going from her home to the grave for a long time, and eventually the family stopped her, locked her in a room and wouldn't let her out again. But eventually she broke out of the room and went to the grave again, and the brother ran after her. This is a long story.
Yeah, but all good.
The brother ran after her, and she said she'd been talking to the dead boyfriend, and he'd told her to go up to the rock and he'd meet her there from the grave, Wow. So she ran up the glen and the brother after her, and then she came to the rock and got to the edge of the rock and jumped off into the river.
Wow.
And the story still is that on the Midsummer's Eve, you can see her ghost in the mists or the river.
Wow.
Yes, that sort of stuff.
It's a bit like, James Joyce's The Dead. Well, there's been many occasions where just a love that's been lost, a love that, should have been and all that, is sort of haunting someone for the rest of their life, really, until, a little bit of madness comes in or a sense of...
That's it.
But that's kind of, obviously very tragic, but, there's beauty in every love story, even the ones that, end tragically. Yeah. Wow.
But as well, the stories of Dargle, they need to make a movie about it.
Right.
They do.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, along all the pathways you saw there, you'd meet different buskers, not just your man with a little donkey, but buskers. And as well as that, there used to be, apart from orchestras, there were often big fights down there as well, with, among the musicians themselves sometimes, over the head with
Oasis versus Blur every day. There you go.
Yeah. But anyway,
and would that be because there'd be rivalry about the location, or was there actually a reason to think, well, let's go there and have our fight?
Yeah. No, it wouldn't be that you went for a fight.
I suppose
the stories
there was a
are there
competition
that there
about
were fights, but there probably was a bit jealousy or something like that.
Anywhere people can make a living playing music, if they have competition there, it can get a little bit Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the really amazing thing is that it was so huge that it was. I've an old book up there written in 1788, Travels in Ireland or something.
Yeah.
And there's the Dargle, all about it, and about the little. There's one left out of there actually.
Right.
They were up over where the orchestras were. There was a little flat area, and they had what they called the Moss House.
Okay.
Which was a little building where people could sit and have tea and that.
It's like the power squad of a stay and that feeling of it being a centre really, rather than just a small attraction off to the side. We will, if we find that other image, we'll add it into the feature above the video.
I have that somewhere here.
But that seems to me almost like a missed opportunity, because one thing we do love is obviously beautiful nature and beautiful locations. But when it has a rich history such as this, you would just think you sort of want to go and visit there and feel the presence of all those stories and all those musicians and
you can feel it. I can tell you, it's a lovely walk. I do it regularly, and I've brought people up there, and they've been.
Well,
straight away.
That's my next port of call. Now I'm going to go up there and check it out for the real.
If you want, I'll walk with you someday and point out stuff.
Because you'll have that sort of first-hand knowledge. I won't be guessing where this thing might have happened. And
but there's another thing. How famous it was. Have you heard of a Dublin song called "The Waxies Dargle"?
I'm not sure I have. You know, it sounds one of those names I should know, but
says my old one to your old one, will you come to the Waxies Dargle? Says my old one to your old one, sure I haven't got a fard. And that's a story about the poor people. The Waxies were shoemakers' apprentices who, what would you say, greased up the threads for the Waxies. They waxed the threads for the stitching the boots and shoes and all that. But anyway, they were poor people. But they used to go out. They couldn't afford to come out to the Dargle. They didn't have their big coaches to be dropped there. And they used to go out to just a place in Ringsend. And they'd go out there regularly for trips, just from town to Ringsend, which wasn't far, but near the sea. And that place became known as the Waxies Dargle, the poor person's Dargle.
Right,
so because they couldn't afford to come to this.
The imitation kind of place or whatever, the second.
And now, today, you can go to Ringsend and there's a plaque saying this area was the Waxies, known as the Waxies Dargle.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
wow.
So there's more history.
Right.
And what else?
Well, it goes on. But you know what we'll do is we will go for a walk up there one day, and we'll kind of do a part two, really, because just being there will be a spark, and we can kind of bring in other elements to it. But yeah, I wouldn't have known now. I would have always assumed that, you know, that river is just the Dargle, and that's that, and the fact that it comes from this beautiful spot, and that the fact that it's been sort of let slip, as it were, in our minds it's crazy.
And the motor car was part of that, because
when people
used to come out to Bray, that's another aspect of it. When the train had only came to Dalkey at first, and they wanted to bring it on to Bray, one of the reasons they said it would be viable was that the poorer people could afford to come out to Bray and get the horse and trap up to the Dargle.
Right.
That was one of the actual
reasons for thinking, well, this would be good for the area,
because loads of poor people could come out on the train and then get the trap up to the Dargle. And
it's amazing how, like, you know, the arrival of trains and, you know, other, they just change the landscape. They don't just change people's way of getting around, but it changes where they go and what they.
Another thing they did as well. You mightn't have heard of this one.
All right.
They laid the tracks all the way to Enniskerry because of the Dargle, and we're going to have a stop at the Dargle. The train was going to run to Enniskerry from Bray Station.
And was that just like on paper? Did they ever get to it?
They built. If you're going along the 21 bends, as they call it, you'll see an archway on the left-hand side going nowhere.
Yes.
That was, the tracks were laid along there. And that archway was to keep the train's weight up off the
pressure of being at the river there, the bridge?
The mains pipe going to Dublin.
Okay.
It's still there. You can see that on the other side of the road over the river.
So how far do they go with the trains run, or they never get to that point where they let trains run?
The trains never ran.
Okay.
The tracks were laid. I have pictures of that as well. The tracks were laid from Bray to Enniskerry. Arches built, all of that. Millions probably spent on it. And then in the long run, after about 7 different tries in the 1870s, 80s, in 1901, I think the last one was, and whoever was putting up the big money either went under or pulled out or something, and it never ran.
And from a government or local council point of view, you would have thought there'd be some investment in that, and feeling, well, this is going to help.
It would have been even today.
Yeah.
because Enniskerry and all that's so big now.
Sure.
It would have been, but look.
Yeah, these things happen, and you realise an entire different history happens because of, you know, something fails or something arrives and it changes. As you see with the Dargle itself, the whole landscape changes because of one simple invention or...
And by the way, the train was... Do you know the Dargle Bridge, if you're looking up the river from the harbour?
Yeah.
The left-hand arch, the train was going to go under that.
Wow, of course, like, it has to be coming from
and they had levelled all along that side of the river, right up along through Pembroke Wood, and they had a tunnel under the road at Kilcrony.
That's amazing.
And it's still there, I presume.
Right.
There's a hump in the road there near the shops at Kilcrony.
Wow.
And the tunnel's under there. And if you look over the wall in front of the big house on the bit of bypass road now, you'll see the big flat area along by the wall where the tracks were. And that went,
I know when the apocalypse comes, I know where I'm going.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.